Hi, I am Hamza Iqbal and welcome to my YouTube channel Nightfall. Hope you will be fine. So let's start the story without wasting time. Samantha and her husband, Mark, had always dreamed of owning a house in the countryside. When they found a large, charming farmhouse at an unbelievable price, they couldn't resist. It was secluded, surrounded by dense woods, and had been on the market for years. The realtor spoke little of its history, only mentioning that the house had a few quirks that potential buyers should be aware of. But to Samantha, the house's beauty outweighed any warnings. From the moment they stepped inside, the house felt different. The walls were thick with the smell of dust and mildew, and the air was stale. But there was something intangible. As they explored the rooms, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. That night, as they settled into bed, the whispering began. At first, Samantha thought it was just the wind. But the next night, as they lay in bed again, the whispers grew louder. They seemed to come from the wall, soft, hushed voices that spoke in fragments. "Get out, you shouldn't be here, leave him alone." Mark, unable to ignore it any longer, decided to investigate. He spent the next few days digging around the house's history. He found that it had been built in the late 1800s by a wealthy family, the Hawthorns, who had mysteriously disappeared without a trace. The house was sold to a series of owners, all of whom abandoned it under strange circumstances. Some said the house was haunted by the spirits of the Hawthorn family, but Mark dismissed it as superstition. The whispers, however, wouldn't stop. The words became clearer, more coherent. "Samantha, you're in danger," one whispered urgently. "It's already too late," another voice muttered. Terrified, Samantha begged Mark to leave, but he refused, convinced that he could solve whatever mystery lay within the house. One night, Samantha woke to the sound of frantic whispers right beside her ear. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear Mark's voice in the hallway calling her, but it sounded wrong. His voice was different, deeper, and more desperate. She cautiously opened the door, only to find the hallway empty. The house was still, and yet the whispers grew louder, filling the entire space. The words were no longer warnings, but commands. "You have to save him." Samantha rushed downstairs, her legs trembling. She entered the living room and stopped dead in her tracks. There, standing in the corner of the room, was Mark, his face pale, his eyes wide open but empty. He was staring at something or someone she couldn't see. Suddenly, the room seemed to stretch, the walls growing tall and oppressive, closing in around her. She heard a voice, not from the walls, but from Mark's mouth. "Help me." Samantha's heart lurched. She reached for him, but the second her hand touched his arm, he let out a low, guttural growl and jerked away. His eyes turned black, and the whispering voices became one, surrounding her, suffocating her. Then, with a violent shudder, Mark's body collapsed onto the floor, his face contorted in fear and pain. Samantha screamed, but the whispers continued, swirling around her. "You should have left. You should have listened." The walls seemed to close in tighter, and the house let out a groan as if it were alive. Samantha turned and ran, but no matter where she went, the voices followed. They echoed through the halls, the rooms, and the very foundation of the house. She couldn't escape. Years later, the house was abandoned again. The whispers continued, and some say, if you listen closely, you can hear them calling for someone to help them, someone who should have never entered the whispering house. The house still stands today, its eerie whispers carried on the wind. Some say it's a warning, others claim it's a curse. But one thing is certain, anyone who enters will never leave the same.